Hey, hello everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I'm coming to you at midnight in the United States, and I'm hoping it's somewhere around 4 p.m. in Australia, at least in Sydney, because this is an Australian case, the very strange case of whatever happened to Peter Falconio. And so let me see who's here. So we got a couple more people coming in. Oh, hi. Colleen is here. Let me just say hello to her too. Hello. Okay. Um, and Vivian. Hi, Vivian. Oh my God. Okay, I can't type anymore. Oh, this is great. I'm glad to see you guys here. And do tell me if you can see and hear me. My usual question. Oh, it's 4 p.m. in Melbourne too. Okay. Hi, Carrie. Can you hear and see me? Okay. Do I look orange? I told you last time I was doing the show that I bought the better camera, and I did. And now I can't figure out how to use it. And I started trying to do all the controls and everything just went bonkers. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know if it's focused. I don't know what I turn this to some strange skin color. So I have no clue, but I'm going to look at it later and see. So anyway, am I slightly orange? Really? Slightly? Is that what you're saying, Colleen? I'm slightly orange? So Anna is here too. Oh, you're in New Jersey. Okay, so you're up at midnight. So do tell me if I look totally orange or not. I mean, it's like anyway, there's nothing I can do now. So I'll have to live with it until I figure out how to do it. And so since I am pointing out all my problems at the moment, before I get going, I do want to hold on a second now. Oh, for goodness sakes. You hear that nice noise? Now I've hit the wrong things. It's midnight here. What do you expect? It's going to be a great show, but I just got to get my brain working here. Okay, so if you're new to the show, please, I want to introduce you to this. Some people say, a couple people said this week, we have, you can join Patreon and you can support my channel with Patreon, especially you can come to the Hangouts during the week. And some people say, I don't have a budget for that. I'm like, that's okay. See that in the middle? Just subscribe, share on your true crime sites, like it. And, if I get 1 million subscribers, I can get my camera problems fixed and I can get makeup. So subscribe. That's all it takes. Or buy my book for $2.99. $2 goes to the channel. And everything is in the link below. All right, that's that. Now, all right. So let's go to the case of Peter Falconio, because this is, it's a case that's 20 years old now. And yet there just recently, like last year, there was a big series that came out in Australia about this case. And so even 20 years later, people are still saying, what really happened to Peter Falconio? So the question is there really an issue or isn't there really an issue? And so I'm going to go into that in the show. Now, some of you may have no clue to what this case is even. Oh, thank you. Oh, by the way, I do have this is super chat because it is a great way to try to support the channel because I get demonetized so much. Thank you very much. I'm trying to show love to Australia and I want to get there one day. It's one of the few countries I haven't been to, so I'd like to be there. So thank you very much. All right, let me tell the people who are especially not from Australia and have never heard of this case. Let me do the real quick synopsis off of Wikipedia. So anyway, Peter Falconio, that's him right there. He was a British tourist that disappeared in a remote part of the Stewart Highway near Barrow Creek in the Northern Territory. Let me just show for you guys who don't know where the Northern Territory is. I at least have a picture of Australia so you can get a clue. Where's my Northern Territory picture? Oh, there we go. All right. So that spot right there, Northern Territory, in a very sparsely populated place as well. Very beautiful, lots of gorgeous scenery, but very remote. And so this is a pretty neat place to visit, and I like to visit it. This is what it looks like. So, hours of driving like that, it's kind of isolated. So anyway, what happened to this guy is that he went with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend this is his girlfriend, Joanne Lees. They're both from the UK. They decided to go on this wonderful trip, and they had been traveling a lot before they came to Australia. So what they had done was they were going on this kind of worldwide trip, and they started in November of 2000. They went to Nepal, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and then Australia. And they had arrived in Sydney on a working holiday visa, so that meant they could make some money while they were there. So they were there by January. And then on the 25th of June, so almost 6 months, they were in Sydney working, making money, trying to get things together. And what he did was he bought this this VW van, that's what I call it anyway. I think it's called a Combi. And so they bought this to go on their travels with. And then off they went, and they departed on their trip. They were planning to go all the way up to the top on that map to Darwin and to Brisbane. And so they're traveling along, and I'll show you a picture of where they were traveling along. So this was a place, this is where you see the crime scene up here. So they were on this road here going north. And so what they did was, Falconio was driving, and Joanne was sitting in the passenger seat. The two had been conscious of a car that had been following them since they stopped at a roadhouse in Barrow Creek. You see Barrow Creek right there. So, and they were expecting to be overtaken. But however, when the vehicle, which was a white Toyota four-wheel drive with a green canopy, he drew alongside them, and the driver gestured, hey, 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 move over, because he was saying there were sparks coming out of the back of the vehicle. So Falconio stopped the van and went to speak with the man, who pulled out off the road ahead of them. And then the man explained that he had seen sparks shooting out. All right, so Peter Falconio and this man went to the back of the vehicle to look at things, and Joanne moved into the driver's seat. So now she's over in the driver's seat. Is that the driver's seat? Wait a minute. Wait, that's not the driver's seat. She was. Wait a minute. I'm American, so we are on the left. So this will be the driver's seat. So she's over here looking back, but she supposedly moved over to the driver's seat to rev the engine to find out, if sparks are going to fly out. And when she was sitting there, she heard a loud bang from the rear of the van. She thought it was a backfire. But then all of a sudden there's this man at the window pointing a gun at her. And he climbed into the van and he secured her hands behind her back with this. This was what he secured her hands with, this this homemade like handcuffs. And then he pulled her out of the vehicle. He tried to tie her feet, but she fought back, and he tried to tape her mouth. And then he put her into his vehicle. And while he was he left her there, and then he went to do something. And while he was being distracted, she got out of that vehicle and ran as fast as she could and hid in the bushes on the side of the road. He went and looked for her, couldn't find her. And she just laid there for a very long time because he had flashlight going and he was moving back and forth. She heard sounds of vehicle, but she didn't know what to do. So she just laid there for a really long time. Finally, he leaves and it's quiet. So at a certain point, she runs out into the road because she sees a truck coming. She runs out into the road, and the truck driver thought he hit her for a minute there, but he didn't. And then she ran up crying and all crazed, and he said, my God, what happened to you? And so she had the handcuff things on, and he cut those off, and then he took her back to town. So anyway, and then they called the police. That's the basic story. Now, what happened following that, I just got to give you the basics here. They looked for who the heck this could be, and there was this guy nearby. Let me find that. Okay, so nearby there was like this gas station, and in the gas station, this guy came in. Whoops, here he is. This guy came into the gas station, and then he's leaving the gas station. You can see the vehicle that he's going to, which looks like the vehicle it could be. Well, the police looked at they searched around for who these people could be, and they came up with one of the guys. They thought it was maybe this guy, and his name was Bradley John Murdoch, and so they couldn't get a DNA sample from him at that point in time. But later on, what happened was this guy was a drug runner, and one of his accomplices they caught up with him, and that guy started talking and saying, hey, Murdoch. And so they were really suspicious of him. So then they talked to his brother who was on the outs, and they got a DNA from him, and familial DNA matched the two of them, but still wasn't quite enough then. But eventually he had been arrested for another crime. So they were able to get DNA during that time, and he was arrested and convicted and has been in prison ever since for over 20 years. So sounds like a kind of a simple thing, right? But over these 20 years, there have been these TV shows that have come up with questions. The journalists have come up with questions. There have been appeals saying, hey, this guy didn't do it. I mean, some people don't like the guy because he was a drug runner and a creep. And he basically told the world he was a scumbag, but he wasn't a murderer. So the question is there some other story here? Something else had happened, because Peter Falconio's body was never found. That was one problem. The other problem was Joanne, the girlfriend. Well, it's kind of a sad truth, but a lot of people didn't like her, and the press really didn't like her because she didn't want to talk to the press. After this happened, she was not willing to give interviews, and they're like, and there were hordes of media chasing her down, both from Australian media and the UK media who'd come over, chasing her down, demanding that she give statements, demanding she talk to them. And she just said, no, I'm not doing it. She just had no interest in talking to the media. And they thought that was very suspicious. They thought that made her look guilty of something. And her demeanor, they just kind of didn't like her demeanor. They thought she was kind of an ice queen and that she wasn't very cooperative, and therefore she must be hiding something. So that started a lot of what's going on even today, 20 years later. That it isn't a simple case, therefore, that these two, went on a trip, and this bad guy decided he was going to abduct and try to rape and murder her, and then he was proven to be the guy and put in prison. There's got to be something else going on, right? There's got to be something else, because this girl's suspicious. So, and his body's never been found. So what is it? What could be happening? So now I'm going to go to what all the stories were on that. And I'll stop and say hello to anybody else here. That's Funny says, there's a film called Wolf Creek. Yeah, they kind of based it on this case. This is a fiction. It's actually a vicious slasher film. People say it's one of the scariest films they've ever seen. And I am a hater of slasher films, so I never recommend them. I'm not fond of this because I think a lot of times it's like almost seeing it from the viewpoint of the perpetrator. Like, isn't this cool how I'm going after that person and killing and stabbing them? And they kind of make me want to throw up. So that's just me. I'm not fond of it. So let me move that. Oh, Dr. Ahmed. Wait a minute. Wait, something happened here. Oh, no, not again. Uh-oh. What happened? Oh, no. Dr. Ahmed, I accidentally hit the wrong button, and it put you in 5-minute block. They have very tiny little spots, and when you hit them wrong, it puts people in timeout. And you can't, and the funny thing is you can't take them out of timeout, which is so bloody weird. I mean, if you're going to let me do that to you, I should be able to take it back. But anyway, I can hope you can at least hear you're actually not in timeout. I hit the wrong button. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. And you can come to a live show because a better time in Egypt. So anyway, let's go about, Shelly's here too. Hi, Shelly and Gambler. Yes, I am live Gambler, and you can't listen. He says, I'll check later. Yeah, check later. So wait a minute. I want to see what, wait a minute. What? Oh, Jessica says, if Peter is dead, what is the point? Well, there's a bunch of theories on this whole case that this guy did not kill Peter Falconio, that something else went on. And that's why people keep talking about it. Oops, now I'm pushing all kinds of buttons here. Okay, so let's talk about what the new story is, at least the most recent story. And I'm going to tell you, first of all, it's been put out by, and I have a little full disclosure coming up here. It is Before I go on, if you just want a really good, well-rounded um, look at this, what happened. I don't usually recommend the murder and makeup people, but this woman, Bella Fiore, she is Australian. She did a two-part thing on this case, and I was very, very pleased. She's telling the story, but she doesn't tell a bunch of bunk, and she doesn't try to analyze things unreasonably. I thought she did a wonderful job. I learned a lot about this couple. I learned much more about the details. I thought she did a phenomenal job. And so I do have her in the link below. So if you just want to go through this case, and if you want to stop right now and not listen to me and come back later, and watch all of this and come back later and see the show, you can do that as well if you don't know enough and you'd like a fuller viewpoint before you hear any of my analysis. I thought she did a fabulous job. So really, really, really good. Oh, and one thing she said, which I thought was neat, she went through their trip prior to where the disaster occurred. From when they had left Sydney, she showed all kinds of things they were doing, how they were visiting with people and having fun and seeing all these great things. So they were having a really good trip. And I think we don't hear that from the rest of the media. It almost sounds like they left Sydney and then this terrible thing happened. So like nothing in between was any good. They weren't having a good time. So I thought that was really nice to see somebody go through what the couple was actually doing in the days before this happened, because they were on a long trip. So, we should know something about that. So I thought you did a great job. Now, then the next thing that comes up is, well, let me see, where is this one here? All right. If you're familiar with Sunday Night, and you're familiar with Ronnie Sadler, she did a thing back about 10 years ago talking about this case, and she got involved to the point where they broke some laws and talking to the killer of Falconio in prison, and Murdoch, and they got charged for it. And this is my full disclosure part. So I don't have any love for Ronnie Sadler. As a matter of fact, I'm really glad she doesn't have the show anymore, because yes, I've done stuff. I did one show with her, and I was brought in to do a Madeleine McCann story, and we did an hour-long interview, and she lied about what we were doing, why I was being brought in as an expert, and she ended up libeling me, editing me to the point where it was really, really horrific. And you can see some of these newspaper articles. Here's the Daily Mail. U.S. crime expert who told the TV documentary Madeleine McCann's parents may have hidden her body, planned to sue the program for purposely destroying her reputation. And they did it truly on purpose. And here we have more on the Sun. And this is me. I never said the McCanns were guilty. And they put me right in the trailer of the show saying the McCanns are guilty. And I never said that. They had edited me. And that's a libelous thing to say. And I only said that there's interesting evidence, but I didn't say they were guilty. And then this is my favorite guy from Australia, Mark, I can never pronounce his name correctly, Sonokonoko. He is one of the finest journalists I've ever run into. I trust him. He's one of the few journalists I'll do any work for anymore. So for 9 News, he put this article up that I claimed a hatchet job and threatened lawsuit. And in fact, I did get my lawyer. We sent stuff to them about what we were going to be suing them for. And it turned out that in Australia, if you're from outside Australia and you're not making money inside Australia, you actually can't sue. So in other words, one of the reasons Ronnie Sadler picked me was because she knew I couldn't sue because my money was not made in Australia. She could ruin my reputation around the world. But unless I made money, unless I was working as a criminal profiler specifically in Australia and she ruined my reputation there, then I could sue. But because I wasn't Australian, I couldn't sue. But she did lose her job somehow. Oh, too bad. Anyway, that's my full disclosure. So I have no love for the network. I just do not. Okay, so then the network 10 years later, in 21, they put out this show called Murder in the Outback, the Falconio and Lees mystery. And amazingly enough, it got the award for best documentary or factual program. And I'm appalled that it got this award because it really doesn't deserve to get such an award because it's absolutely horrific. Now, let me tell you who the parties are who are involved in this. Let me get the information on these guys. So we have the real guy who's running this whole show, and he got it's a really funny. Oh, let me find the article. This article is why it made me laugh because it's just pack of lies. So it's the story is not Sunday. Wait a minute. Hold on 1 second. Oh, where is the funny one? Oh, how it's called this. The title of the article is How 7 Secured Its Sunday Night Monster Murder in the Outback. And it says, Andrew Fraser and Victor Sussman contacted us a few years ago about the story. And so Andrew Farrell, the head of Factual, and I went down to Melbourne and to meet them and look at what they had. And I had to admit, we were very skeptical in the beginning. But, oh no. See, Andrew Fraser is a former lawyer who was portrayed in another true crime drama. Well, interesting enough, he and Sussman put this thing together, and they're in this documentary and doing all the investigating. And now I think it's who is suing who? They had a falling out. So Fraser is now suing his buddy Sussman. And they're saying he was a former lawyer. He's a former lawyer, but got disbarred because got into cocaine trafficking. He's not a good guy. I call him a criminal lawyer. But he did represent for many years, many criminals. He was a defense attorney. And so this guy thought, hey, I want this guy on my side. Even though he is not an attorney now, he can do more, still do things for me. So Fraser and Sussman, now let me see if I can find you a picture of these guys just so you know what they look like. Let's see which one's which. I always tell you, these little things are so small, it's hard to find them. There we go. This is Andrew Fraser, ex-defense lawyer. Yes, he sure is. And this is his little sleazy partner, Victor Sussman. And they're the ones who put this show together. And what they did was they also brought in Roger Maynard, and he is a foreign correspondent from the UK. And he basically wants to write a book. So you got these 3 guys doing this show. And yeah. So the guy says, this guy named Campbell says, the reason they wanted to do the show was the thing that really tipped us across the line was the police file on the Peter Falconio case, which they worked very hard to get. And so they said there were so many real genuine issues. And so he said, we just got to do this. We fact checked everything and we have to do this. You know why they did this? Because they made a whole heck of a lot of money because they don't have ethics. They didn't care if it was true or it was not true. They didn't care what was said in the show and whether there was anything to even any reason to what they said in the show. They didn't care. What they saw was a 4-part series that was going to make them a lot of money. And guess what? It did. That made them a whole lot of money. So these are who we're dealing with. Now, the question is, all right, so as you can see, I don't have a great deal of love for 7 or this documentary. However, sometimes a documentary can be put out by a production company and a network that I don't like. It could be put out by people I really find despicable, but they can have points. They can have real points. They can have some theories that may be worth looking into. And so consequently, I didn't just immediately say, all right, I don't trust anybody here. I'm not even going to look at it. No, I watched all 4 parts of the series, and they had some very interesting points that they were making. And I found them rather fascinating as to how they believe, therefore, that things are not the way people think they are. So I'm gonna go back now and just sort of explain to you what they said they found suspicious and unusual, and maybe things aren't the way they seem. So let's go back. I just want to check in on your comments for a second before I get into that. Oh, oh, hi, Crystal. Crystal's here, also from Australia. Jessica says Sunday night is a bootleg 60 minutes. And Funny says, I'm glad I didn't bother to watch that Falconio and Lees documentary then. It sounds like a waste of time. Well, it's interesting, and it's got very interesting points, but these are the points I want to point out. All right, so let me, hold on one second. I want to get in front of me. All right. All right. And the Mirror in the UK did a really kind of good thing. They looked at this show and they pointed out what they said were 6 very interesting points in this show, and they wanted to bring these points out. All right. So now, Dr. Ahmed, you've returned. I apologize for knocking you out for 5 minutes. And well, that's interesting. This case has many similarities with the death of Alexander Stevens. And I'm going to have to look that up because I'm not familiar with that one at all. So, okay. So now let's start at the beginning let's start at the very beginning where they're now setting out this couple. And one of the things that they point out in this documentary is that the couple may not be what we think they are. So they've been presented as being this happy couple, 6 years together. Maybe they were even going to get married after this trip. They were having a time of their lives, but not everything was quite what we think it is. And one of the things that was found out to be true was that Ms. Lees apparently had an affair for about a month with a fellow that she was working with. And so that would tell you maybe their relationship was a little shaky. I don't know if they were on, I didn't hear about them being on a break. We're on a break. Oh, you can mess around when you're on a break. I didn't hear about a break. So I'm assuming that she was working with this guy and got a little bit cozy with him. And whether, she was just having a fling and then thinking, oh no, this isn't really going to, I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I'm doing with this guy because this is my real guy. I'm not going to get into judging here, but anyway, she did have this fling, and then these two went off on their trip, and everything looked pretty happy. Now, after he disappeared, she did have some communications with the guy again, and that made people very suspicious. Like, oh, see, maybe you did something to him. Maybe this is Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. And if you're not from the U.S. and unfamiliar with this case, this happened quite recently. Another couple in the United States going on a trip together in their van, going to beautiful sites, and they were on YouTube. They were YouTubers, and they were doing gorgeous pictures together and camping, and everything was fine until Gabby Petito disappeared, and Brian Laundrie drove the van back home without her. And since then, she was found dead, and then he committed suicide and left a note that said he had killed her. So even though Brian Laundrie and Gary Petito look so happy together in every one of their pictures, apparently not quite so perfect. So is this the same kind of case? Was there some issues between the two of them? And on the road one night, something was going wrong and she wanted to get rid of him. That's one of the theories. That somehow she decided to get rid of him. Some people even say she killed him, which I'm trying to figure out how that's possible because, his body vanished, and I don't know how they would be driving along and then he just disappears and his blood is at the spot where she was found. Oh, I didn't show, some people haven't seen the blood yet. So let me show the blood on the side of the road. So when they were pulled over by, as she claims, by this guy, there was seen, let me find my picture. Where's my picture? Hold on a second. if you can see right here, see that right there on the side of the road? That is Falconio's blood. There is blood right where the van was found a little ways up. She was running around this area, hiding in the bushes. This is something happened to him right here. Now, Joanne says she heard that bang, so Murdoch shot Peter right there. And then he tried to kidnap her, and then he did something with Peter's body. Theoretically, he picked up Peter's body and put it in his own vehicle, and then drove his vehicle away and buried him somewhere in the desert. But if you believe that, no, that's not what happened, that Joanne killed him, if the van was found just right nearby, their own van, and she was found right here in those handcuffs, and his blood is right here, what did she do with the body? Do people really think she's like this, so clever, like she killed him someplace else after they were, and then she buried him someplace, and then she saved some of his blood and drove further up the road and poured his blood on the road, then got rid of the van a little, no, not got rid of the van, but moved the van into the bush a little bit. And then she came back and tied herself up. I mean, this is pretty ridiculous. And so I do not think there's a shred of evidence that she actually killed Peter herself because she was tired of the relationship. And you have to ask, if she was tired of the relationship, she could just dump him. They weren't married. They didn't have kids. She could just simply say, I'm done with this. I got a new dude, and dump him. It's not a big deal. She doesn't have to kill him. I mean, unless the only reason that she would have killed him is that they got into an argument. Like right there, they got into this massive argument, like did Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. Brian Laundrie apparently attacked Gabby and killed her while they were together. They got into some argument here, and he got killed. But then again, where does body go? I mean, I don't think Joanne is like some kind of magician. She can just make his body vanish and still be in the spot. So that it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, another theory, and this okay, I'm gonna have to show you how this new theory came about. So one of the questions was, here's where's my article? See, every once in a while I'm having these problems with it's because these things are so small I can't see them. That's why it's so difficult. There was a question. Is this it? No, that's where she told her the abduction. And yeah, my thing has gone missing. Nope, that's the car. I can't see the stupid things. They're so incredibly small. They're very, very annoying. I'd have to find a way to fit. If I had a massive screen, I could see these things, but I don't have that. So, no, I can't find. Okay, so anyway, another theory was that since his body was never found. Okay, I'm gonna ask you guys because you're here. How many of you knowing this case? I want to see what you have to say. All right. So one of the theories is because his body was never found, maybe he just wanted to disappear. There was a claim from some guy somewhere, some media got hold of, that a friend had said, oh, he bought this like insurance policy and he was like going to make himself disappear and look like he was murdered, and then he's going to collect on the insurance policy. Yeah. Okay. That was the idea. Now, can anybody tell me what doesn't make sense? What doesn't make sense? So there was, let me tell you where part of this concept comes from. Let me pull up. There's this guy, the truck driver that picked up Lees, Joanne Lees. When he found her, he told the police, she ran out and she ran out of the street and she was all freaked out. And then he takes her back to town and calls the police, and everything goes on there. Well, somehow when these two guys from this documentary show up to interview him, and this is one reason it's kind of interesting to actually look at this thing, because it's like, what? So anyway, this is the guy's name. His name is Vince Miller. He was the truck driver. And now he claims, 20 years later, Now he claims, oh no, that's not all that happened. First of all, there were these lights flickering up ahead. And then I saw this red vehicle later. I saw this red vehicle and I saw two men putting a third man. He called him Jelly Man. Like, I guess his legs were like shaking or falling. He was like limp, Jelly Man, putting this Jelly Man into the vehicle. And they didn't seem to want, I was going to go help them because I thought maybe they were broke down, but oh no, they just wanted to get away. So the car just took off. So I think, he says, I think that was him. I think that was Peter Falconio being put into that car. So in other words, I don't know why his blood is in the street. Okay, maybe he faked an injury or something, and then people put him in the vehicle and took him away. Oh, there is that concept that the two of them, the Falconio and Lees, were running drugs, and that they pissed somebody off, and then somebody caught up with them and attacked them, and I guess they were dragging him off to the vehicle, and then half tied her up and left her out there. And then this poor Murdoch guy just got blamed for it later on, but he wasn't even there. But so we have this jelly guy getting into the vehicle. Now, what's really interesting is see this other guy. This is Rodney. There's actually a second truck driver in the truck. So when Joanne Lees ran into the road, both these guys were there. Now it's odd in this documentary. They never talked to the second truck driver. Why doesn't the second truck driver talk about that little red car down the road with Jelly Man getting into it? Somehow that doesn't exist. Now, then you ask yourself, well, if that's true, why didn't he tell that to the police? Well, now he claims he did tell the police that, and it was part of the report, but then that part of the report got lost somehow. But 20 years later, oh yeah, that's what I saw. So this is a big deal in this show. That maybe Peter Falconio was put into that vehicle. Maybe he was faking his death and getting into that vehicle and being driven away, and therefore he's going to be able to, collect that big money. Now, what does anybody see wrong with this picture? So now I'm going to go to your comments on that. What do you say? Colleen says, truck driver talking BS. Yeah, it's very questionable. 20 years later is a little long. I say he claims this in the police reports, but he's never said anything prior to this. All suddenly in this particular documentary, oh my God, he's suddenly, oh well, I actually said something 20 years ago. Okay, so well, there's an interesting point. How would you collect on your own insurance policy if you're meant to be dead? Yeah, so somebody else is supposed to collect on it. Now, what's interesting is I have never heard one word, and the documentary didn't bring it up. So if you're these guys, including that journalist, right? Why haven't you said during the documentary he did take out a life insurance policy, and this is who collected on it? They didn't mention anything. So they're bringing up the concept without actually giving any details that would support that. So now here's another thing. So let me see. So let's say okay, let's look at the way this would have happened. That he was going to fake his death in the middle of nowhere, right? Now, two things are very weird. So he says to Joanne, Joanne. He says to Joanne, so Joanne, I want to fake my death so I can collect on the life insurance policy because, even though I've been successful working all my life and we're together for 6 years and my family loves me and we love traveling and everything's going really fine. And I'm not running from the law. I haven't committed any crimes, but I think I just want to pretend I was murdered to collect on this insurance policy. And then maybe the two of us can meet up and hide someplace in the world and spend that money. Right. So he says to Joanne, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go to this spot. I got these guys following us, right? They'll pull over. And what I'll do is I'll bleed a little bit. I'll just bleed on the road here. I'll just, maybe my arm. Maybe I'll just cut my arm and just make sure I have enough blood on the road. I'm going to put these handcuffs on you, Joanne. And what I'm going to do is, once I get the handcuffs on you, I want you to run around in the bushes and scrape the living crap out of your body, okay? And meanwhile, I'm going to jump in the car with these dudes. We're going to drive away and leave you completely alone in the dark in the middle of the outback. in some handcuffs. Good luck. You know, maybe you'll get lucky and, you won't get run over when you run into the road trying to flag down a truck. Maybe you won't get picked up by a serial killer and end up raped and murdered in the bushes. I'll just leave you out in the middle of nowhere. See you soon, honey. We'll meet up in Thailand. Does that make any sense? I mean, really? Does that make any sense? The stupidest thing I've ever heard. Now, here's the second thing. If you want to go missing, not missing, you want to pretend you're dead. First of all, you can't collect on any insurance unless you can prove you're dead. So, 7 years. In the US, I think it's 7 years. I don't know what other countries or insurance policies have. But usually there has to be a time period to say, hey, this guy's not coming back. Now, first of all, this is very, very elaborate. It would be much easier because, there's a lot of ocean around Australia. You just go down to a beach. You leave a suicide note that says, I can't take it anymore. My girlfriend cheated on me. You leave that with your stuff. You take off some clothes and make it look like you walked into the ocean and drowned. Now, that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier. And your body's never found, but it's assumed it was eaten by a shark. Much simpler than this because it's easier to die an accidental death and then the police don't pay much attention to it as compared to what looks like a murder. Now, think about this. Once he sets up this, I'm going to disappear by this murder thing, and Joanne's going around, I was attacked and the guy was going to abduct and rape me and murder me. The massive police investigation, massive, one of the biggest police investigations in Australian history. If you want to hide, this is not a good way to do it because while you're trying to hide, every single person is looking for you. Everybody's looking for you. It's very hard to hide then, especially when you don't even have an Australian accent. Of course, in Australia, you don't have an accent, so you'd have a UK accent. Everybody goes, aren't you that dude? Now, interestingly, these guys in this documentary find some people in a cafe someplace or in a store. They had a store at a gas station, a husband and wife who claim that years later, this guy walked into the store and they went, oh my God, that's Peter Falconio. It looks just like him. And they swear it's him. So he's alive. You see, two people said he was alive. So my God, he must be alive. So, this is what makes me laugh when I see stuff like this. You have a documentary. A documentary is supposed to be focusing on facts that make sense, and you've got these bozos coming up with these ridiculous theories about how he faked his own death and how he's trying to collect on his insurance or whatever the hell he's supposed to be trying to do. That makes no sense. So it's just so stupid. So that's one of the theories. Now, so there's basically four theories. That one is he faked his death. One is Joanne got mad at him and killed him. And the third one was they were dealing drugs, and these people chased them down in the outback and attacked them. But the fourth theory would be that Murdoch, this guy Murdoch, who's a drug runner who was in that area, saw an opportunity to abduct a woman and rape and murder her. And it's funny because the guy, this lawyer guy, ex-lawyer guy, says, well, I don't understand this because it's clear, if Murdoch did it, there was no motive. No, that's the motive. It's called sexual predator. The sexual predator's motive is being able to commit a sexual assault. I mean, what kind of you don't think that's a motive? I mean, which is interesting because Murdoch also, when he was arrested later, after this happened, a few years later, he got arrested for kidnapping a woman and her 12-year-old daughter and supposedly doing the same kind of thing with the little handcuff thing there and raping the little girl, raping the woman. And it was unfortunate that when he went to trial, he didn't get convicted, but there were people out there, and he got arrested for it, that said this is exactly what he did. So I would say the motive is sexual assault. I mean, that's not a motive to you? I mean, I quite don't understand how that's possible. So now we have, we'll get to Murdoch now, because now this show has to prove that it isn't Murdoch, because that's the whole point, that this guy's innocent, that he didn't commit this crime because he's got no motive, so he couldn't have committed the crime. But now, what did Murdoch get convicted on? Well, let me show you what he got convicted on. So the evidence against Murdoch was this. Just to point out, remember she had the handcuffs on. These lovely handcuffs. She had these on her. Okay, she had handcuffs on her. And what did he have in his vehicle? Oh yeah, things like this. Oh, look at see that material right in there? It kind of looks like, oh yeah, like those things, like ties that he made those handcuffs out of. So, there you have it. The other thing he got nailed on was the type of vehicle he had, which was the type of vehicle she described, and was the vehicle that was seen in that gas station. Now, it was said that he changed things up quite quickly, that, he was very good being a drug runner. He would change what the truck looked like. He would change what he looked like, cut his hair, cut his mustache, whatever he had to do to change up to then become less suspicious. There were, let's see if I can find, this was what she described him like, for example. That was her description of him. And then, let's see if I got another couple pictures of him. Yeah, this is another version of him. That's when he had his beard thing going there. So, he could change his looks, and he could change his vehicle, because it's kind of the stuff he was into. Now, as far as, so he had the type of ties that did that he tied her up with. And one of the things they claim also is that she tied hands behind her back. And you see how there's those links in between? Well, when she was found, her hands were in front. So the claim was, she obviously tied them herself, because she couldn't have gone from the back to the front. But then when she was in court and they asked her to show it, she just sat down on the ground. Whoop, she's not that big a girl. So what she did is put her legs together and just pull them around her butt, and she came up with them in the front. So yes, she could do that. So, I mean, I've covered cases where women have tied themselves up and done things to themselves to look like they were attacked and kidnapped and tied, all that stuff. But this time, no, actually she could do that. So, she proved that it could be done. And so he did have this kind of materials, and he'd also done the same thing to another woman. She did have injuries, a lot of scrape marks on her from running around in the bushes. Now, here's another thing they said. Only her footprints were found. This is a very convincing thing for a lot of people on the show. Only her footprints were found, not his footprints. And by the way, he supposedly had a dog with him. He did have a dog with him. And the dog footprints weren't there either. Well, it turns out that they only had actually 2 or 3 footprints of anybody's, and that 2 or 3 footprints of hers. Well, clearly she was running all over the bushes. Her feet probably touched the ground 50 to 100 times. Why are there only 2 or 3? Well, it's because of the type of ground. The ground was very hard, and what happened at that moment was footprints just didn't stay on the ground. They didn't imprint. So, if there are 50 footprints of Joanne and 0 of the man and the dog, I'd be more questioning. But if there's only 2 or 3 of hers, well, those prints just aren't taking on the ground. So that's ridiculous. So she had lots of scrapes, and so it seemed very much that she was in that location, and she was getting scraped up, trying to hide from this man. Of course, that's not proof. He did it. So then we come to this, which I think is most interesting. All right. There was DNA on her shirt, and there was also DNA. Let me see if I can pull up the info on that. The basic things that they had. There was DNA on the stick shift of the car, and also on the steering wheel, and that so there was DNA in 3 places. They did, the DNA on her shirt was his. Okay. When they finally got Murdoch's DNA and tested it, it was his DNA. No question. The DNA in the vehicle was mixed with other stuff, but when they tested that, they even said it was like 17,000 times more likely it was his than somebody else's. So in other words, yeah, there may be a few other people out there who had that when you have mixed up DNA that could have that DNA, but let's face it, there's only so many people on the road, and he was one of them, one of the very few, and it was not inconsistent with his DNA inside the vehicle. Now, on the shirt, absolutely his DNA. Now, here we go. Again, this documentary just appalls me. It appalls me that these people have no ethics. Okay, so now this scuzzy lawyer and a scuzzy friend are trying to explain why would his DNA be on her shirt if it wasn't him, right? Okay, so here's this explanation. Okay, he's got to concede. Well, if it's his DNA on the shirt, well, I guess it is his DNA. So how did that DNA get there? Now, so he's going to go with this theory. Now, touch DNA, which is, less than what was on the shirt, but touch DNA sometimes, can go from the fact that, I touch this phone and I hand it to you and you touch it, and then you take your hand off and you go like this, and now my DNA is on your shirt. So that can happen. Touch DNA can transfer very easily. This wasn't touch DNA. So there was like a little blood and it was his. And so it's his DNA on her shoulder. Now, this is their explanation for how it got there. Now, there's this place that they all stopped at. At some point, they were supposedly, the three of them were at this place called the Red Rooster. Okay, it's not like a I guess place to eat, right? So they're supposedly not together at the time, but the claim is that Falconio Murdoch was in the Red Rooster before Falconio and Lees stopped in. And this is their theory. Let's see if I can find them. They're amusing little pictures. Oh, yes. Okay, so the claim here is that, you see this chair here? So the idea is that he touched this chair. Somehow he's walking by the chair and he touched the chair with his hand, and his hand put that little piece of DNA blood stuff on there. And then she sat down in the chair and it just happened to hit her in that one spot. His DNA jumped from this DNA was on the back of that chair. And then she sat in the chair and it went onto her shirt. Okay. If you believe that nonsense, I mean, I got some property in that swamp to sell you. I mean, the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And they said, okay, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe it was that, like, he was doing a checkout thing and his hand went over a check, you're checking out things like you're pushing your produce or something. And then she came and pushed, and then she went like, yeah, I mean, just dumb stuff. So he's trying to come up with a way that somehow, by pure accident, in another location, Murdoch's DNA just happened to get onto her shirt. That is how stupid this documentary is. I mean, that is just, it's of course, and of course it is probably his DNA in the vehicle as well. That wasn't as strong as the one on the shirt, but it still was very strong. So when you put together DNA in the vehicle in two places, you put the DNA on the shirt, you put all these other facts together. Yeah, that's why he got convicted. That's absolutely why he got convicted. So let me go back. I just want to double check to see if there's anything I missed in the disturbing. This is what they said: the disturbing 6 unanswered questions that still remain in the murder. Was there someone else on the highway? This is a little red car. No, that guy fabricated that crap. I'm going to say, if you didn't have anything to say for 20 years and there's no proof you ever said it in the past, I'm not buying that the police decided to wipe this out of the report and now you've just come up with a little red car on the road. Yeah, I'm not buying it. The next thing they say is DNA evidence. So here's again, they're talking about how, it could have been transferred if they both touched the same chair. in another location at the Red Rooster. And then they're talking about Peter still being alive. That's another question, which we've already answered. A lack of blood at the scene. A lot of the claims is that there's just not enough blood on the ground. And there's not blood spatter. It depends. It depends how he was shot. It depends where the shot went into him. It depends whether there was a theory that I think maybe one of Joanne's jackets was missing, that he could have used a piece of cloth and just wrapped it around the guy's head to put it in his vehicle, and therefore there was only so much that was there. I mean, there'd be a number of different reasons, but there was blood at the scene. It was Peter Falconio's blood. And it wasn't just a drop. I mean, there was a patch of blood, so something happened. Let's see. They had some witnesses they brought up in this show. And what they did was, you find, 20 years later, you find somebody who says, I saw those people in here later on, and I saw them do this. I saw them talking to maybe Murdoch. And people come up with stuff years later that has no validity, and there's no proof that any of that is true. So they're just, and I can tell you, documentary people will go and they will search the whole town that they find anybody who wants to be on camera. And then they talk about the only one set of footprints. So those are supposed to be, according to the Mirror, after this thing came out, the disturbing 6 unanswered questions. No, they don't still remain. Those questions don't remain. Those are 6 stupid ideas brought up in a documentary by a sleazy lawyer, a sleazy lawyer's friend, and a journalist who wants to sell a book, and a production company and a network who want to make millions. That's what it all comes down to, because this is really a fairly open and shut case. Just because some people didn't like Joanne Lees. Oh, let me point this out. Oh my God, I didn't point this out about. The reason they didn't like her was because of her demeanor. And some things she changed a little bit of her story. And there is, the good possibility that night was such a freaking horror show that some things she just doesn't remember, because she was so terrified and thought she was going to die. So some things may not be very clear. But they also, in this show, they put, they have this, they show this part from the police interview. So she's in the interview room. There she is. See her over here. And she's like looking bored, like, do I have to answer this question again? I already told you that. And her attitude really sucked. It looked terrible. She goes, I think you're just accusing me. You're accusing me of doing something. And she doesn't have a good attitude. She looks terrible. But you know why? Because she'd actually been through, this was not her first interview. This was maybe the 4th, 5th interview. She had been through hours and hours and hours of multiple interviews answering the same questions over and over and over again. Now, just before she was leaving, going home, they said, we want to have one more interview with her. And they put her in there and they did this. And then they started pushing things again. Now, she was getting really frustrated because she was like, you're asking me stupid questions. You're indicating I did something wrong and I'm the victim here and you're treating me like crap and, interrogating the heck out of me. And, she was fed up. She was fed up and was getting a rather bad attitude. But I would say maybe all of us would do that, And just because she wouldn't talk to the media, hey, I commend her on that, because the media will lie. The media will edit. The media will try to trick you. The media will do everything they can to get whatever they can out of you to sell a newspaper and to sell their television news shows. I have no respect for that. And that's one of the reasons I hardly do any news anymore, because I stopped trusting them because they didn't seem to care about the truth. So I commend her for telling the media to go jump, because she had no reason she had to talk to the media. I don't understand this concept. Well, she should have talked to the media. Why? She talked to the police. They knew what her story was. Everybody out in the world knew what Peter Falconio looked like. They knew the basic story. They didn't need her to stand in front of them and cry and whimper and tell the story over and over and over again for their benefit. They already knew what the guy looked like. There was no more that was needed. She did not need to say another word. So I commend her. I think more people who are in her situation should tell the media to go screw themselves. Really, I honestly do. I think the media racing after like a rabid pack of wolves is disgusting. It should be something done with decorum. The media should send maybe one person from each whatever. They should sit in a nice room. They shouldn't be shouting questions. They should be polite and decent and dignified. But that's not what happens. And I can't blame her. She didn't want to be part of all the tabloids. Now, she finally gave in later on. She did a couple of things. I think she did one for, forgot which one she did, but she also did one. And now, this was Bashir. She did it with Bashir. Now, it's claimed she got $50,000 for this interview. I don't know if it's true or it's not true. That was the claim. Now, did she or didn't she? I don't know. But, she might have finally decided, okay, I'm going to finally tell my story. If I'm going to have to tell my story sometimes, I might as well get $50,000 out of this one. Don't know if I blame her for that. So anyway, she does this. And many of you are quite familiar with the behavior panel. So the behavior panel on YouTube put out this: did she kill Peter Falconio? And they used the Bashir interview and analyzed every bit of her facial expressions. And if you don't know who the behavior panel are, these are the guys. Occasionally, I like what they have to say. A lot of times, I disagree with them. I think they over pick on everything to the point of ridiculousness. So I do not approve of them all the time. And in this instance, I thought it was abysmal. And I'll tell you why I thought it was abysmal. First of all, she was doing an interview, again, taped interview. We don't know what the actual questions Bashir asked her any more than when I was, Ronnie Sadler interviewed me. When you saw what I said, you thought, oh, this is what Pat Brown said. No, it is not. And sometimes she would ask me one question, I would answer the question, and in the show, the question was different than the one that was asked. So it looked like I was responding to something that I wasn't responding to. So it was really sneaky stuff. So I look like a moron. And I wouldn't be surprised if whatever Bashir asked her wasn't necessarily what you heard him. The question and the answer might not have gone together. He could have asked this question, she answered it, and then they substituted a different question. Or they asked her the question, and they do this 4 different ways until they get what they want. And so sometimes they say, well, what about this? And they try to get you to restructure your answer and to reframe your answer till they get just what they want to make their show. Can't trust whatever happened there. So that the behavior panel would analyze this kind of show, full well knowing that this is an edited and manipulated show, I think is unethical. And I don't understand why they did it. So I find that rather appalling. So let's see, is there anything else that I want? Oh, I do want to point this out, which was pretty cool. Media Watch, this also on, I put the link below. Media Watch did YouTube, it's on YouTube, and they basically trashed this. And I thought there's the show and the documentary, and it was very, very funny. So that's something to watch. I found that really amusing. So take a look at that. Okay, now I'm going to go with some of your comments here. Okay. Oh, the dog. Okay, I want to mention the. Oh, this is interesting. Bashir is a total manipulator. He's done it often. So true, Pat. He's untrustworthy and is wrong to use that footage for analysis. Absolutely. I mean, there are times when I've used footage for analysis when it makes sense to do so. But I was really shocked. And recently when I heard the original statement that was made by Jerry McCann. Jerry McCann was talking about what happened with his daughter Maddie, and he gave an answer, and it turned out that answer wasn't so bad. But the real answer, the documentary people cut it because it was so terrible that it really made him look bad, and they have an agenda to support the McCanns. So when he said something that was horrifying, they cut it out. So sometimes depending on where the documentary is coming from, they can support the person they're putting in there, or they can be out to get you. And the problem is, if they're on your side, you'll come out smelling like a rose. And if they're not on your side and they're setting you up, you will get stabbed in the back. That's for damn sure. I like Media Watch. I don't know much about Media Watch, but I like this one. Oh yeah, that was the Michael Jackson interview. Yes, he did that. It was quite a famous interview. Yeah. Thank you. I agree with this. Humanimal says, we did not discuss the dog yet. I forgot to get to that, but I want to point to that in a minute. She says, I disagree often with, especially about McCann's, the behavior panel. I prefer Peter Hyatt and statement analysis. I agree with you. I'm a Peter Hyatt fan. I like statement analysis way better. Now, sometimes I think statement analysis can also get a little too nitpicky. I go with more broad things, but I do like Peter Hyatt's methodology quite well. And the dog. So the dog issue was interesting. Supposedly, what Joanne Lees said, when the guy pushed her into his vehicle, when Murdoch, or the man who was abducting her, and this is her story, pushed her into his four-wheel drive vehicle. And then he pushed her into the back, and there was a claim that she couldn't have been pushed into the back, but apparently there was actually a space for that to be done, but it was later changed. Anyway, she was pushed into the back, and in the passenger seat, I guess, I don't think the dog was driving, there was a dog. And she said it was what was that dog? Okay. It was somebody tell me what the dog was, a brown, some kind of hunting dog thing. I'm not good with dogs. Brown, some kind of brown hunting dog. But it turned out that he had a Dalmatian, which doesn't look like that at all. Now, so here's the question: why would she say the dog was a brown dog when it was a Dalmatian? And I actually don't have an answer for that. But what's interesting is she said there was a dog. Now, so how would she know there was a dog if this never happened? She knew there was a dog, and there indeed was a dog. Now, it's possible that, I don't know, the lighting in the car, the vehicle, she didn't see the spot part. It just, the lighting made the dog look dark, and so she again, we're talking about panic situation. I don't think people understand sometimes what it would be like to have that horrific panic. I mean, you think you're going to die. That's what she thought she was going to be raped and be murdered, and she was most likely correct. She just heard a shot. Her boyfriend, she's on this wonderful trip, and her boyfriend suddenly, she thinks, is possibly dead, and she's been tied up by this big, huge guy because he's a big dude. And then she's thrown into a vehicle, and she thinks she's going to be carted away and raped and murdered. And the terror in your head does something to your brain. I was grabbed once as a teen in a fun house. It was a dark fun house. I was going through these dark, you walk through these fun houses and going through these, they make these little hallways and things. Somebody grabbed me from behind. I won't describe what happened. And I broke free from his grasp. And I know, this is what I remember. I slammed into the one wall, and then I went running and I slammed into another wall, and then I ran and slammed into another wall. I slammed into 3 walls before I somehow managed to get to the exit. And I remember hitting these walls in this massive panic. I don't know, how much I would have been able to describe about certain things. I don't know. Some things might have been in my head. Some things I might have lost. Because when something happens, you think you're about to die, and your brain is everywhere. There's all kinds of visuals coming in and sounds coming in and panic and emotions. You think you're going to throw up. If the woman didn't get the dog right, I think the chances of her misidentifying a dog are more reasonable than she picked up Murdoch's DNA off of a chair at the Red Rooster. No, I think it was pretty. Yeah, that could be, but it looked like a pretty normal Dalmatian to me. Yeah, so, oh, that is unconscionable and against the journalistic code of ethics. I think the journalistic code of ethics went out the window a long time ago. I really do. That's why I stopped doing news. I mean, I couldn't. There doesn't seem to be any ethics. I mean, there are ethical journalists. Okay, I know some ethical journalists. That doesn't mean that the state of journalism is very ethical anymore, and that's a damn shame. That really is. It's a damn shame. Let's see what else you say. I'm going backwards here now. Yeah, they do not understand trauma. Joanne was treated so harshly. She really was. I believe the original police detectives. I think something. Maybe it's just her demeanor rubbed them wrong, and I think they were really rough on her. And she claims they were. I mean, most detectives are very good at interviewing people and doing a good job, especially departments. The bigger the department, they might have people that specialize in talking to victims, and even if they're questioning whether they're victims, they know how to go in and do a very good interview and get the information they need. And they're not fools. It's not like, oh, you're just a victim, so I'm going to believe everything you say. No, but they know how to talk to them in a way that they come across as sympathetic, but they're still pulling out that information. So a good detective who has experience in that. Some detectives, especially sometimes they hire female detectives specifically for that purpose. That they work with child abuse cases. They work with sexual assault cases because they're usually talking to children or women, somebody who's been in the more likely abuse situation and suffering from trauma, and so they know how to deal with that. But you get a smaller department. Let's face it. This wasn't a huge department. This was in the middle of freaking nowhere. You know, whatever you get for your police is what you get. And I'm not saying they did a bad job. It's just that they're not super skilled. They don't have tons of training. They don't have, well, we had 100 of these cases this year. No, they had one. Eventually they got a new person in there, a woman who took over the whole case, and she believed Joanne and said she always thought she was telling the truth. But I mean, yeah, I think she had very harsh treatment. I think she had a lot of trauma, and I think her personality, here's an interesting thing. I always point this out. Whatever you are before a crime or horrible incident is what you are afterwards. You don't become a different person. Let's say, for example, you're a massive narcissist prior to the incident. Well, you're going to be a massive narcissist after the incident. Doesn't mean you committed any wrongdoing in the incident. So let's just make this up. Let's assume that Joanne was a narcissist. Then when she does her interview, she comes across as one. Well, that would be so. Even if she truly was attacked and somebody attempted to abduct her and killed her boyfriend, she would still be what she was. Or let's say she's not a narcissist, but let's say she's a very stoic type person. She has specific ways of doing things and specific emotions, the way she expresses herself. That doesn't change when she's been abducted and assaulted. So she's traumatized, but she still has that personality. And if you have somebody who is, very unobservant, like that would be me. I cannot identify anything. I can't identify people. I have never been good. Faces. I have what they call face blindness. So not a critical one, but I do have face blindness. I can't identify my own children. I'm like, is that my daughter over there? It's pretty terrible. And I have to wait until I'm like, oh yeah, that's her. I'm very, I have a very, very, very bad time identifying people. And so if I had to identify Murdoch, I might say he looked like a man. I might be able to do that. What kind of animal was in the car? It was a dog. What kind of dog? A dog. And they'd say, well, I think Pat Brown is hiding something from us because she can't describe the guy and she can't describe the dog. And what kind of vehicle did he drive? It had wheels. I can't describe vehicles either. So, I mean, Pat Brown, she's hiding something because she can't come up with anything. She just won't tell us what she saw. No, I can't because it's the way my brain is. And if anybody, so what you always have to do is you have to find out what that person is like prior to that incident. Now, if I was a very descriptive person before that incident, and you could ask me, oh, did you see that guy yesterday? Oh, you mean the guy that was 6'2", who had the curly blonde hair with a slight orange tinge in it, and he wore the glasses that had the little golden metal signs in it. If I could describe that before this happened, and then I can't describe anything, probably there's something weird going on. But if anybody says, why do you think Pat Brown didn't describe the guy? Anybody who knows me is like, because she probably has no clue what he looked like. She can't do it. I suffer from that terribly. Doing television shows is always very difficult for me because I would sit down on the couch with somebody and I just had no idea who I was talking to because I couldn't recognize their faces. So unless you told me who it was, and I have called people the wrong thing before on national TV, not good. So you have to know what they were before. So she might have had a personality that just they didn't understand, and therefore she came off badly to them. I see no evidence that what she said did not happen to her. That she was entirely accurate about everything, perhaps not. But I don't see any evidence that she was involved with killing her boyfriend, lying about Murdoch, lying about the guy with the truck and all those things. I don't believe she was hooked up with drug dealers that got her in the middle of nowhere. And lo and behold, still Murdoch ended up being the fall guy. That just makes no sense. So, yeah. That's funny. I would not talk to the Australian media either. The only media that are worse are the British media. And American media is not so great either. I mean, I think the tabloid, the way media has turned into tabloids, and the 24-hour news cycle has turned, they have to get so much and they have to get it so fast. They don't care. They just want to get it. They don't care about the truth. They don't care who they run over to get it. They don't care who they hurt. And it's really sad because it's taken away from what news should be, which should be the reporting of facts, and it should be news. It shouldn't be this garbage we got out here now. It's pretty sad. Let's see what else you got to say here. So Murdoch definitely done it, right? I see no reason to believe he did not do it. I see absolutely no reason to believe it. So everything, the DNA is very solid. And the other thing that's funny about when people say, oh, his DNA could have gotten there some other way, or could, there are very few people, very few. And lo and behold, he was on the road that night in the truck with a dog. And his DNA was there. How much more do you need? Well, there's a good point. Yeah. If it's true that Murdoch's DNA ended up on Joanna's t-shirt by pure happenstance, then how many other people's DNA would also have been on her t-shirt and shorts? Like everyone in Australia. Yeah, I mean, it is possible there's other DNA that can be identified. Like they didn't say there was DNA, for example, from the truck driver or whatever. But if that were true, that would make sense. If there were DNA from her boyfriend, that would make sense. But this was actually a blood thing. So it's like, no, I mean, it's like Murdoch should have nothing to do with her. So it wasn't like if they were dancing in a club, that would make sense, but they weren't. So to say that they just happened to cross paths, and then this one sat down, and this one touched this, and then this one came touch that. Ew. I mean, that is fantastical. And somebody, making up a bunch of garbage, and it's embarrassing almost. I find it embarrassing. If you bring up that, you're an idiot, and you're supposed to be a lawyer. I mean, defense lawyers come up with a bunch of garbage a good portion of the time anyway, but it really annoys me when it's in documentary. A documentary is supposed to be presenting facts and analyzing facts, using experts to analyze facts in an intelligent way, not to have a bunch of bozos saying a bunch of ridiculous things. But hey, you know, what Seven wanted was not the truth, because the truth was boring, because it was already proven. You see, the truth was 20 years back. The truth was Murdoch committed a crime 20 years ago, and it was solved. So you can't talk about that again, because nobody's going to watch it. So you come up with something that's tantalizing. These six, what would they call this? Disturbing six. I'm trying to read this. Disturbing six unanswered questions. Ooh, oh, now we got to watch this, because maybe Murdoch didn't do it. Oh my God, they've got new evidence. Oh my God, they're going to prove something different. Maybe Falconio is still alive. Maybe Joanne Lees was a lying dog. You present that because you want millions of people to watch. You don't want to present the truth. So it's unethical, but that's not concerning to them. Just unethical. Oh, is that like the Red Roosters, like a KFC? Is our food any good? That's what I want to know. Let's see. What else have we got back here? Yeah, okay, this is a good point. I think he looked for her, but he gave up pretty quickly because he had a dead body he had to get rid of, so he gave up and took the body away instead. You know, this is a good point, Colleen, because what happens is when people try to get into the mind of a killer, they're like, well, why would they do that? You know, sometimes I don't know why people do the crap they do, because at that moment in time, I mean, theoretically, he could have just walked away, just jumped in his vehicle and got the hell out of there. Or, you know, couldn't find her. He could have just left the van where it was, left Peter Falconio's body where it was, and the police would have found the van and the body and her. The same thing would have been there, but maybe he was concerned about the I don't know whether he was concerned about a couple things. He could have been concerned about maybe there was a bullet in Peter and it would match his gun. Maybe it was, it was an ammo issue, ballistics issue, or maybe he wanted to remove the body and the van was out of sight, so that the van is out of sight. That gives him time to get the hell away. Because if that's right there and immediately called the police in, he may not be far enough away. Maybe he thought he could get farther away if he just got rid of that. That van was hidden. And he didn't know what happened with the girl. He didn't know. She could have just never showed up. She could have gotten run over. Something else could have happened. And then he wanted to get rid of the body, maybe because he thought they don't ever find the body, they can never charge me with murder. Because they can't prove he was murdered. And he did get charged with murder. But interesting enough, some people could say, well, why did they charge him with murder? Because even if he were, they couldn't prove he was killed at that spot. They couldn't even prove he was shot. There was blood, but maybe he was cut or something else. Maybe it was a real backfire. If there's no body, there's no proof of a murder. I think that's what he thought. And, but it didn't work out for him. So this is very true. She was very lucky, all things considered. Absolutely. I mean, I believe she would have been raped and murdered. There's no way he would have let her go. And the other two women, they did get away, or he let them go. I don't know. Supposedly there was a little more to that story, like prostitution was involved and so forth, and drug stuff. But he might have been a serial killer. If he was planning to abduct and rape and murder this girl, then he's a serial killer. There may be other crimes he's committed, other rapes and murders he's committed. I haven't heard about them, but that doesn't mean they didn't happen. They may just not have been linked to him. He's a truck driver. He's on the road a lot. He's running drugs back and forth. He's all over the place. Who knows? He didn't pick up a hitchhiker and rape and murder a hitchhiker someplace, or pick somebody up out of, at a bar and she just never was found again. He may be just a straight up serial killer. So, let's see. So I'm going to go back down to the bottom now. Working my way back down. Okay. Let me go back here. Um, oh, that's an interesting point. I like this one. She may have what could have been. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Um, she she has maybe some sort of survivor's guilt. She may. Um, why my boyfriend? Why am I here and he's not? Um, could I have done something? Who knows? I mean, maybe, I don't know. They should not have gone off in the dark and tried to get up to Darwin. Um, that's that, and in the really nice thing that Fiore does, she explains very clearly the distances and how people usually do it, and they should not have. They should have stayed at the hotel and said, "Screw it, we'll go in the morning." I don't know why they went. Now it's possible. Now here's what we always don't know because people aren't going to admit this stuff. She could have said to him, "Oh hell, let's just go. Come on now. Let's just get there. I don't want to stay in this crappy hotel. The hotel is icky. I don't want to stay here. Let's just go." And they do. And now she feels guilty because she was the one that, and maybe he was saying, "I don't think we should do it." And she said, "Oh, come on. Don't be ridiculous." And then he gets killed. And now she does feel guilty as all get out. So yeah, that might be absolutely, absolutely true. So let's say, it also says Murdoch took straight off to Broome. He could have dumped Peter anywhere along the way. Supposedly there was like, apparently there was like, and I can't remember exact amount, what's 800 miles or 800 kilometers. Not sure, but it was a huge difference. I mean, distance, hours and hours and hours of driving. That body of Peter could be anywhere. And once you get way out in the middle of nowhere, and he was talking about these different places you could bury a body pretty well. And if he knows those things, maybe he's done it before, and he's got all the time in the world and all the equipment to do it with, so that he could have easily found a place to bury him, and that body will never be found. Maybe 50 years from now, suddenly they'll run into that body and oh man, it's Peter Falconio. So yeah, and one of the things people just don't seem to understand about searching. I mean, it's hard. You can't even find bodies in small areas. I mean, the people all the time, I don't understand why Chandra Levy's body wasn't found in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. It was a park, for God's sakes. Yeah, it was a park with a lot of ravines and it was a long park. And a dog walker. No, the guy was searching for turtles or something. He found her by accident. Bodies are usually found by joggers, hikers, and dog walkers. Because they're the ones going down trails and maybe stepping off the trail to pee, or the dog decides to go into the bushes. So that's a lot of times when the body is found, not by the searchers who did this incredible grid search and still didn't come up with a thing. So now you've got, what are you going to do? Grid search like 800 miles of highway? Good luck with that. There's just, if Peter Falconio's body is ever found, and I do believe he's dead, I don't believe for a minute he's not dead. It'll be purely by luck. This is this is true too. The other thing defense attorney will always say is the police planted the DNA after getting his samples. They try this one on almost like every case, actually, interestingly enough, they kind of allude to this a little bit in the documentary, but then they go to the chair thing in Red Rooster, and see how it could have happened. It's like you should have stuck with the police contamination issue, because the Red Rooster thing is really stupid. You go with the one that makes more sense. Oh Lord. Let's see. Animal says 10 ways your cat tells you he loves you. It's a headline style to grab attention. Yeah, it's always 6 ways, 10 ways, 5 new ways. There are no 10 ways my cat is trying to tell me he loves me. My cat is trying to tell me, if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to you up. That's my cat. No, Ziggy. My cat Ziggy. He's a terrible reputation and he deserves every bit of it. Oh, that's another good point. Oh, I like that one too. She might feel guilty, as it's unlikely Murdoch would have attacked if she hadn't been there. After all, it was Joanne who was the real target. That is also very true. So my point before, that Joanne may have been the one that urged, Peter, let's go, let's not stay. That could be true, because I just don't know. But if she did do that, then she probably feels really guilty. But yeah, she might have thought, oh my God, maybe he saw me, and therefore Peter got killed because this guy wanted to rape and murder me, and my poor boyfriend was collateral damage. And, yeah, if it hadn't been that this guy was after me, it wouldn't have happened to him. Now, of course, shouldn't feel as guilty for that, because she can't control this loser's, Murdoch's, serial killer mind. She'd probably feel more guilty if she just pushed Peter into continuing on in the dark instead of staying at the hotel. But I don't know that any of that happened. So, but the fact that she might have felt guilty, even if it's not, even if she shouldn't, even if there's no reason for her to feel guilty, people feel guilty anyway. I always find it amazing. People say things like, I should never have let my son drive to the store to pick up milk because he got hit, got a car accident and died. So I shouldn't have made him go get milk. I myself have thought, when I travel and I'm on a plane and all things happy, I'm on my way to India or something, I'm all comfy in my seat. Well, I'm never comfy. I'm in coach. Okay. I'm like struggling in my seat, but I'm watching a movie and whatever. I'm thinking, everything's pretty cool. I'm going to have fun in India. And then we hit like some bad weather and the plane starts jerking around like this, right? My next thought is, how selfish I was, just because, I decided I had to go on the stupid vacation. And if I hadn't decided that I could be home with my children and my grandchild, I mean, why am I so, selfish that I have to go take this vacation? I mean, I could have 30 more years with my family, but no, I had to go on vacation. And then after I feel really bad about that, then the weather calms down. I go, oh, good, I'm going to India. But we tend to feel guilty when we think there was a better option and we didn't take it. So, but that is survivor's guilt. Yeah, survivor's guilt is a real, real big thing. Yep. Well, I'm not going to say I agree with that. Animal saying, might be a secondhand guilt that made Amanda Knox act even more queerly. She might feel so guilty for running. I think she was actually brave. I'm going to say no on that one. So I don't know if you have seen my Amanda Knox thing. Amanda Knox is it's a very, very contentious case, and people have a lot of views that she's totally innocent or she's totally guilty. I stand in the middle, because the things that she said and did are problematic. And so I do not believe she was involved with killing Meredith, because there's no evidence of her being in the room, more than one person killing Meredith Kircher in Perugia. But there is enough evidence that puts Amanda connected to the situation, and the statements she made were really, really concerning. So I stand with that. She had some part in certain things, but not in the actual homicide. So, but it's a very confusing case. So, yeah. So, so you have to watch my video and see why I think the things I do, because it's a really tricky case. And and one of the things it's always a problem is when we aren't the person who has 1,000 hours to go through every shred of everything, and to start from the very beginning, to go to Perugia and look at the town itself, to see the actual layout of the house, to find out, to do interviews, to see every police report. And in this case, it would have to be all translated from Italian. I mean, we have limits to what we can try to understand. And so what happens is, outside of the courtroom, we have all these opinions. All I can do is with what Amanda Knox herself said, and I have concerns over what Amanda Knox said in English, and her behaviors are very concerning. So that's why I have an opinion on that. But anyway, so watch that one, Jessica. It's a very complicated case, and one thing I always hope that people do, and which is why this is an educational channel, is that, but for example, I've explained all the reasons why I think Murdoch is definitely they convicted the right person, that Joanne Lees did not have anything to do with what happened to her boyfriend. And Peter Falconio is not alive and living off of insurance money. I've explained it all, but sometimes people will come in and go, oh, but you're so wrong. You should have looked at this. The defense said this, and you're just not paying attention to this. This could have happened and this could have happened. I'm like, look, I'm not here to argue all this. I'm not. This is not a channel for let's all fight it out. This is an educational channel that I hope that when people come here, they learn my thought process and can understand how I look at things as a profiler, how I look at evidence, to be just very realistic and logical about, how to view cases. My hope is that detectives who are working in homicide, or who are going into the field, criminal justice people too, will watch my channel. Sometimes just sitting in a squad car to just listen to me talk and see how I'm thinking, see how things go, and help train and educate people in the process. Not so much I can prove everything 100% or that I'm always right and everybody else is always wrong. I don't need to do that. And this is not what this channel is about. So, yeah. I'm trying to see what else. But so this is my hope, what my channel will do. But anyway, this was a really great case, and I did not know about this case, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do it a couple times a month, do cases from another part of the world that I'm not a part of, and I always apologize for butchering names and places, and if there's any cultural things that I'm an idiot about, people can feel free to speak up and say, Pat, that's not the way it works in our country. You're completely wrong about that. And, because there are always cultural issues. Oh, this is a very interesting thing, which I did see somewhere, where apparently when Joanne described Murdoch, she said a local guy, like not a tourist, right? And a whole bunch of people attacked her and said, well, there's no way she would know this was a local guy. And I thought it was really funny because a whole bunch of Australians came in and said, no, she would know that, because this is the way a local guy works and talks and acts. So she could figure that out. She's been in Australia long enough. She's been there 6 months. She's met different kinds of people. She would have a clue, So I thought that was really funny that they came in and actually defended Joanne, saying, looks like a local guy. And so there's a lot of truth to that. So the cultures and subcultures, it's always good to have people who understand the particulars. And, sometimes even, you can even have a subculture on a street. Like this street is different from that street. And if there is a difference and somebody can explain it, then we learn something and we can put that to use in future crime scene analysis. That's a good point. I'll tell you why. Why is everything made into Hollywood drama like the West Memphis 3? Because it sells. It sells mega bucks. Making a Murderer, one of the biggest things Netflix ever made money on. Didn't matter if it was true. Didn't matter if it was ethical. Didn't matter if there were any facts in it. It catches people's attention. People like drama. Unfortunately, that's true. People like drama, so people do what sells, and people have always done that to a great extent. You have choices. You can write a book, for example, that's a good book that is full of important facts that nobody reads, or you can write something really dramatic and cool that everybody reads, and one of them gets you, a lunch down at the Red Rooster, and the other one gets you a nice new house in Thailand. So depending on your way of thinking, you can either do what's more educational and more useful and more factual and eat beans, or you can, do what makes money and get a plane, So that's the way it works. Oh, that's interesting. That's funny. He says, she said, Joanne would know in 3 seconds flat from Murdoch's Bogan accent that he was a local. I don't know what a Bogan accent is, but yeah. So, if they've been in the country long enough and going to different places, you would think that you would start getting an ear to some extent for, if somebody sounds like they're from that, particular, generally speaking, area. Now, she could be wrong. She could be wrong or she could be lying, but, there's things and you don't know. For example, I went, my mother was, she had Alzheimer's. And so after things got really bad, she went to this memory unit. And there were 2 ladies there. And they came to the door and they were, welcome to the place, welcome your mother and all that. And I looked at them and I said, excuse me, where are you from? And the lady said, Jamaica. And I was like, okay, no, I know Jamaica, but where in Jamaica? And then she told me where. And she said, why did you ask? I said, because you sound exactly like my ex-husband. And it turned out they were from the exact same parish in Jamaica, because even in whatever country you're in, there are those local accents. And so I know the difference between the parish my ex-husband is from and, for example, Kingston, Jamaica, or Montego Bay, Jamaica, or Negril, Jamaica, or, St. Elizabeth. All these different places in Jamaica have little bit of differences in the sound of speaking. So she was like, oh my God, and so we had a really nice time chatting because we all, were practically relatives. So, so you can hear those differences. And of course, the more familiar you are, the more you can discern the smaller differences, and can be very useful in a criminal investigation if you can pick up on some of those things. So I do better with accents than I do with faces, which I'm useless at. So, oh yeah. Oh, yes. I think I'm going to be doing something on this. Crystal says, thank you, Pat. There's one case still unsolved in Australia, the William Tyrell case. I think it's Tyrell, hopefully. Would love to hear your thoughts on that one. Must run, take care. William Tyrell. Now is in the little boy's little Spider-Man outfit. They're doing some digging recently around a particular house. And so I have to go and look at the results on that, but I do want to do a show on Tyrell because that's a really interesting case. But I have to make sure I can get enough information, because one problem sometimes when I want to do a case is that the information is so shoddy. And I'm like, I don't have anything to work with. I'm like, half the information is just not there. It's so minimal. It all depends whether there's, it's kind of funny. For example, when I was looking up this case, there you come across this particular sentence, right? And then when you're looking to find more information, you find that sentence. On Google, and I'm finding that sentence like in every single news report for like 30 different news reports, because it's like they just steal from each other. So it's nothing new. It's like, oh my God, they just said that over here. They're saying exactly the same words. You're just snatching it. So it's not like you're getting, this person went out and did their own journalistic stuff. They did their own reporting. They did their own research. No, they just stole it from the other people. And so you get like 50 news outlets. They say exactly the same thing. So it's hard sometimes to get information. So, I made a series of videos on it because I wanted to juxtapose against Susan Morphew. Oh, the Susan Morphew case, yes. The children of case. I'm not sure about this one. Susan Morphew, in case you don't know the American case, in Colorado, a woman went missing, and I'm talking. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm on the right one. Yeah. So the woman went missing, and her husband is the suspect. And right now he's I think he's in jail, but and the daughters are like, we want to see our daddy. So I guess they don't believe daddy killed off mommy. So I just read that. So that's an interesting case. That's interesting. There's a big long podcast called Nowhere Child on William Tyrell, done by a journalist from the Australian. No idea if it's good or not, though. Yeah, I have sometimes problems with podcasts. And the reason I do is like sometimes they're so long and they go into so many pointless details that have nothing to do with the case that I can't sit through that. Like, okay, it's 10 hours worth of crap, you know? And I'm like, because they like to bring in every theory and every little detail. But my problem is, I don't mind a podcast that focuses actually on the evidence, but a lot of them just go off into lots of territories because, you know, when you do a show like I do, and I only do like one show per case, and I don't draw it out into 20 different shows, and then everybody gets involved in trying to figure out who done did it, you don't make as much money because, you know, one and done. This doesn't bring in the cash. So, Crystal says there was a detective that got taken off the case. There have been so many different versions from people involved. It's a real twister. Perhaps you would love it. And this is the, wait a minute, which, talking about the Terrell case? Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, as far as why detectives are taken off of cases too, sometimes there's a lot of internal stuff. Sometimes it can be because of crappy detectives or they do something that you shouldn't have done. A lot of times it's internal things too. And sometimes we never actually get the truth about a lot of stuff. So you know, I have to be real careful about that. But I'm going to definitely check that one out. So I will look at I have looked at the Terrell case. I just haven't decided to do a show on it yet. So because I have to have enough to do a show, because I'm not a storyteller. As I point out, I'm not a storyteller. As you can see, I don't do very well even telling the story like this one. It's like, that's somebody else's job. That's why I say, if you really want, go to Fiore, and she did a great job telling this story. And the documentary told the story, even though they added a whole bunch of garbage in it. But there are documentaries that tell the story, or just Wikipedia that tells the story. But for me, I'm interested in the issues, not so much the story. So, yeah. So until I have a reason to do a show, I don't want to just tell a story. And because if I were just telling a story, life would be easier, because it wouldn't matter whether there would be no issue. I just have to say, okay, here's a new story. I'm going to tell you about this story that happened in Australia. I'm going to tell you about the story that happened in Colorado. I'm going to tell you about the story that happened in India. I'll just tell you the story. I don't have to think about it. I just have to get good pictures and be a good storyteller. But I'm a criminal profiler, so I have to have a reason to do the show. Some points that I want to make about the process of analyzing and understanding crimes. So, yeah. So sometimes people say, hey, why don't you do this? And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing to say about it, really. And I also, during the hangouts during the week, like someone asked me about the family, by the way. Could you talk about the family? And I'm like, okay, I looked at that. And so on my hangout, my last hangout, number 23, which you can access, I talk about the family, because all I've got to say about it is 5 minutes long, because it's interesting. But the point about it is, how many victims were there really, and how many people were involved? Other than that, I really don't have much more to say. So sometimes I'll take a case that I just have one thing to say about, and I'll put it into the hangout, because it's not going to make a whole show. But I still can address some things, and so that's what I address sometimes in the hangout is, you know, one issue things, you know, one interesting response to a particular case. So, please do Jaden Lesky. Oh, okay, I'm going to take a picture. I do this. This is my way of. Now, I put this on my list now, and I just take a picture of it because it's easier on my camera. And so, Jubilee. What? Oh, what the heck is this one? Oh, all kinds of things. Oh, I'm going to have to look up on the Terrell case. So yeah. I've got a really long list, but you know, it's fun that, you know, each time somebody comes up with a new case for me to do, and I look into it, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's a good one. And then that one ends up being one of my shows. So coming up this Sunday, which now is tomorrow at 3 p.m., I am doing 3 p.m. Eastern time in the United States. All you people in Australia will be asleep. And it's going to be on the Black Dahlia, which is a historical case. And I was really questioning whether there was enough to do on that case because of how ancient a case it is and how confusing all the information is. But there's been books written about the case, all kinds of theorizing, and it's kind of interesting to see how these theories go. So I decided I would do the show on the Black Dahlia. So, and that is coming up tomorrow. No, this is Saturday now for me. Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States. So that will be tomorrow's show. So I'm so glad you came here tonight. This was so fun again with all you guys. So anyway, that's going to be it. I'm going to go to bed because for me it is now 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's a weird time to do a show at midnight. But I really actually just wanted. I just always felt bad because I knew I couldn't, if I did shows from any place else in the world, nobody would be able to, join me live. And, I can do cases from around the world and not do them live, but you know me, I like live. So, yeah. So Lisa says, oh, thanks, Pat. Oh, thank you, Jessica. Lisa says, where is it? Yeah, where is it? The Black Dahlia. Yay. Yeah, it's a really popular case. And so, tomorrow. Anyway, so thank you all for being here, and I will see you. If you come tomorrow, I'll see you at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Otherwise, you'll be watching it on just the video. So keep your ideas coming in because I will pay attention to them, and I will eventually, hopefully, get them done. So I'm finding them so fascinating. I really am. So it's very, very cool. Anyway, good night, and I will see you later. Bye.